Welcome to Decades of Horror, the 1970s.
Put those bloody lights on!
Wow. This is episode 230, recorded December 4th, 2024.
Gruesome Magazine.
I am your host, Stock Rotten, and I can't do
What?
anything. And this podcast is about horror films released between 1970 and 1979. Each episode, my co-host, Jeff Mohr, and I will take a... No.
The high road?
We'll tackle another classic or not so classic film from this wondrous, groovy, gory, influential decade. With me this week is my co-host, Jeff Mohr. Jeff, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Did I change the script or something?
No, but if you wanted to, you could. No, it was me. I goofed.
Okay.
Also joining us tonight is Bill Mulligan, writer, director, special effects guru, and cattail wiggler. How you doing, Bill?
Doing okay. It's starting to get a little cold here. It's feeling like Christmas time.
Oh, just
surely,
It was 4 degrees yesterday when we got up.
Okay. Well, I said it got cold. I didn't say it got psychotic.
Psychotic. All right. Also joining us is Chad Hunt, comic arts co-host of Decades of Horror, the classic era, and the 80s, and a swell guy. How you doing, Chad?
I'm good. I don't have a tail to wiggle, but you know.
Okay.
Don't cut yourself short.
This isn't TikTok.
I think maybe you do. You're just not showing us.
Oh, no. It's getting scarier and scarier by the second, folks.
Uh-oh.
All right. We are here to review Dark Places from 1974. And I would wager that many of you listening have not heard of this film.
That would include me.
But those that have are going to say, what do you mean we haven't heard of this film? But we'll get into that here in a second. First, Jeff Mohr has a little to say about Play Now Media.
Oh, yeah. I was going to have a spiel made up, so I'm just going to wing it. Guys,
so far, so good.
We partner with Play Now Media, and they have a lot of cool streaming channels. And in particular, Decades Horror of the 1970s is on the Wicked Horror TV channel. And Play Now Media has been so nice as to offer us the use of some discount codes. So if you enter the discount code DOH70, DOH70, and I don't know if it's case sensitive or not, all caps, DOH70, you will get 20% off your first payment. So if you sign up for the monthly plan, which is $6.99 a month, you will get 20% off the first month. If you sign up for the annual plan, you'll get 20% off the annual fee, which is $50, which is more money. So you should probably do it that way.
Well, it's already a bargain to sign up for the yearly thing because that's like half price then.
Well, yeah, that's 40% or something like that.
That's a pretty good 60%. Deal.
But anyway, and here's it. It's only good for first-time subscribers. Sorry, long-time listeners. It's the way of the world, you know.
Way of the world.
But even paying for it, they've revamped all the apps and everything, and they're amazing now.
Yeah. They are much better.
They are way better than they used to be. You can save your progress. You can save movies. You can have a watch list and stuff like that. It's really
between devices, and it saves your time and all that stuff. And there's lots of options. So if you don't want to subscribe, if you don't want to give them your email address or anything, you can just go in and watch, and you'll get ads. It won't save your place or favorites or anything like that. You can subscribe with email and a password, I believe, and you'll still get the ads, but then you can have favorites lists and it'll remember where you're at. Or then you can pay the fee, get rid of the ads, and get some extra premium content. So
you got
yes, it's excellent. It's excellent. I'm excited about it. I hope somebody will decide to take a look at them. And if you're not sure, just you can just go to the website. Oh, that's the other thing is you have to sign up through the website. You can after you do that, you can download the apps on Apple TV or Fire TV or whatever, but you have to go to the website. And if you go to our website, gruesomemagazine.com, we put that website on every episode blog.
There you go. All right. And if you happen to be watching this on Play Now Media apps, let us know. Write out to us. We'd love to hear what you think and that you're using it. So
it's too scary for me to put us on the big screen TV. That's just.
We have guys like me on here who
are. Yeah, there's got to be a bright light.
I like looking at Chad, but
got to be a bright light in one corner. Yeah. All right. We are here to review Dark Places, 1974. What we're going to do is we're going to go through a card, give you the spiel, and then we're going to give you our first impressions, if you will. When we first saw it, what do we think of it today? A mini review. And then we're going to dive into a discussion about the film, the cast, the crew, and the shenanigans. And then we're going to wrap up things today with a lot of feedback. We have some feedback, and we love feedback. So stick around for that. I think you will enjoy it. So let's get into things. Let's start off with the card and rock this out, shall we? Boink. All right, Dark Places. Look out at the window. Dark Places, 1974, directed by Don Sharp, written by Ed Brennan and Joseph Van Winkle. The cast includes Christopher Lee, Joan Collins, Herbert Lom, Jane Birkin, Robert Hardy, and Gene Marsh. Production company is Glenbeg. Oh man! And I'm not even going to say.
I'm going to say Glen Bay. I'm going to say Glen Bay, but
I think it's Glen Bay. Yeah. The filming locations: London, England. Filming dates: November 1972. Released May of 1974. Interesting. It's also known as.
Oh boy,
Jeff.
Who's got the French going here? La Manoir des Fantasmes, the Mansion of Fantasies. Italian, La Scala della Folia, the ladder or stairs of madness. I mean, it translated it as ladder, but if I just take the word Scala, it says stairs. So why would you say the ladder of madness? There's no ladders. There's lots of stairs. Anyway, I'm saying the stairs of madness. And German, once again, they come through.
Yep.
Das Grab der lebenden Puppen. The Tomb of the Living Dolls.
What the hell movie did they watch?
Well, there's a lot of dolls in this movie, but they don't seem to be living. But
it's not their tomb, but okay. Yeah, sure.
But what if it was? Synopsis: after the original owner dies in a mental asylum, a man moves into an abandoned mansion with a sordid history. Meanwhile, a few locals conspire to steal a large amount of money, said to be hidden somewhere on the premises.
This is basically Shadow of the Cat without a cat.
It's an old dark housey kind of thing.
Yeah.
All right, let's. This was my pick. I'm not going to start off, but let's have Chad do it. Chad, what was your first impression of Dark Places? When did you first see it, and does it hold up today?
I just saw it the other day, so yeah, it holds up for the last few days.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I had never heard of this movie, never knew it even existed, or anything. I've never seen the poster or read about it, nothing. So I went into this totally blind. And I said Christopher Lee's in it. Herbert Lom has his schnoz in there, sticking his nose where it doesn't belong, and as usual. And and Joan Collins, who I've hated since I watched her on, what was it, Dynasty?
Oh, no.
Dynasty, yeah.
I can't stand that woman. She's probably the nicest woman ever to walk the planet Earth, but I can't stand her just because of that show. Anyway, this was a pretty good little flick. I kind of liked it. It had some devious characters in there, unsavory types who you think are bad, and they are in their own way, and almost a little bit of a mystery too, because you don't really understand what's going on in the house and why it feels haunted and that kind of thing. But as the story unfolds, you start getting little bits and pieces of the history and what happened in the house beforehand. And So yeah, I kind of liked it. I liked Christopher Lee in it. I liked Joan Collins in this one. I thought she played a pretty good role, and the lead guy, I can't remember his name right off the bat. There, I thought he did a wonderful job. Yeah, playing the two characters.
Yeah.
You know, and so yeah, I enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed how the narrative and how the story unfolded, and up to the very end, I liked it a lot. So
interesting. Bill Mulligan, sir, when did you first watch this? What was your first impression, and does it hold up today?
Yeah, I first watched this just a couple days ago. I don't think I'd ever heard of this film. And this is one of the reasons why I love being on the podcast. If I were like skimming through Play Now Media or Shudder or whatever, and this one came up, I'd look at the synopsis and say, yeah, well, okay, haven't seen this. I probably should watch it. But there's a Mario Bava film I've only seen 40 times. So I think that's probably the one I'd go to. So it kind of forces me to watch these marginal movies that I otherwise just would never see. It's a slow moving, but pretty good thriller. It puzzles me in some ways. Like you kind of expect it's going to be one of those things where Christopher Lee and Joan Collins are making it seem like it's haunted to drive this guy crazy. He's already crazy. I'm not exactly sure why he got the house in the first place or why he is possessed with the spirit of this guy, because they're not related.
But he looks like him.
Okay, yeah, he does look like him. Well, that helps. And it definitely picks up toward the end. But it's got a great cast. It's got that neat little MacGuffin. We all think we're looking for the money, which almost seems the money ends up being kind of a punchline. And yeah, so I did enjoy watching it. Don Sharp is an interesting director. He did some pretty cool films, Rasputin, The Mad Monk, and but I'm watching this. I'm like, this doesn't feel to me like a Hammer movie so much. Hammer didn't really go for ghost stories, maybe more of an Amicus. And I wasn't really getting much of a Don Sharp vibe until and I was like, I was waiting for it. The bats, when the bats showed up, those horrible English Hammer bats where you could forget seeing the string. They might as well be dangling on a rope.
I call them floppy bats.
Just little floppy bats. And I'm like, Kiss of the Vampire. There we go. There's the Don Sharp influence right there. I love English horror. This movie looks so good. It's really well made. It's efficient. I mean, this is a low budget movie, but it looks great. But god dang, those guys couldn't do bats to save their lives.
Never could. Never will.
Nope. Just it was a nut they could not crack. So I enjoyed this. I'm glad you picked this. I'm glad I got a watch again. Strangely, it feels like a movie I think I'd like to watch again after a little bit, now that I've seen it, and maybe watch it again now that I understand what a slow burn it is, and that it's kind of building toward a pretty cool climax, but there's a lot of stuff in between. And Joan Collins, Chad, you're right. She was so hateful in Dynasty, but it's fun going back and watching some of these early movies because, one, she's a very good looking woman, and a better actress than I gave her credit for, because in Dynasty, those nighttime soap operas, everyone is swinging for the rafters. It's over the top. It's cartoonish. And when she would appear on talk shows and stuff, she basically was still playing that role. It became Joan Collins playing a Joan Collins character. But it's fun going back and seeing some of these earlier movies where she was not just fetching, but a pretty good actress too.
Yeah.
And did a really great job in this film.
Excellent. Jeff Mohr, when did you first see this? What was your first impression, and does it hold up today?
I just saw this for this episode, and I was pleasantly surprised. Again, I hadn't heard of it, but it's a very nice English. We're going to talk about this a little later, but I would like to have a discussion with you guys on. Yeah, Joan Collins and Christopher Lee are trying to drive him crazy, which is a short drive apparently, but
might already be.
There does seem to be some supernatural shenanigans going on, or he's hallucinating. That's what can you say? So But I think his descent into madness is great. The way he plays that, and how he's sort of possessed by this other character that owned the house. And actually, I'm not a big Joan Collins fan, but I think she does very well in this. Christopher Lee, of course. Herbert Lom is just the obsequious. I don't know. He's just
the nosy neighbor.
He's just hanging around in case he can put his hands on some of that money when nobody's looking. So yeah, but it is a nasty story.
There he is.
It is a nasty story.
Yeah.
And we do see some nastiness at the end. Well, there's some other stuff before.
Some unpleasantness.
Unpleasantries. No.
So I enjoyed it. And I wasn't entirely familiar with, I mean, I knew the name Robert Hardy. And in fact, he was in the Lost Classic Era episode.
Oh, nice.
Berserk. He was in that one. Anyway,
nice.
Maybe we'll have
the
to
episode that shall not be.
All right.
Yes. Yeah. So I was, I picked this one and I was scouring for a film to tickle my fancy, and I ran across this. I think I found it on Wicked channel, the Wicked Horror channel. Is that right?
I don't think so.
Which one did I find it on?
It's only on Tubi, I think.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's on Tubi.
That's where I
Tubi.
watched it.
Yeah, that's where I saw it.
I think I'm confusing with a different one, but so I found it through our usual methods then, and I just look at this cast, and I do not recall ever hearing of this either. I was like, what is this? And kind of watched the trailer and skimmed through the Tubi link a little bit just to see. And I was like, is this is this any good? And I think I threw a couple films at you, Jeff, and we decided, yeah, let's try this one. Let's see what this one is. And Bill, I'm with you. I love it when we discover these films that we haven't seen and they end up being entertaining. They may not be the best thing ever out there. This isn't the best thing ever out there. It certainly is far from the worst. We've watched far worse films than this. It is solid. But it feels more like a really good TV movie than a bad theatrical film. Because it just has that slow nature to it. And I think that's the displacement of time, having seen it now. If I'd seen it at a drive-in or a theater back in '74, probably would have a different opinion on that. But I don't ever recall this film. I had a blast watching it. It's not great. It's solid. It's just a solid kind of old dark house whodunit, kind of Scooby-Dooey looking thing, because there's and there is a question about is the supernatural really in this house, and they don't really give you an answer. There are hints, and we'll get into that as we discuss it, I suppose, a little bit further, but there are times that other people other than our loony lead, our unreliable narrator, if you will, encounter these supernatural things and admit that they didn't do it, is kind of where I'm going with that. And so they're kind of like scratching your heads, because there's some really interesting people trying to undo our lead. And it does. The cast makes this movie. And the story, the plot is interesting enough. It doesn't throw anything crazy or wild at you. It doesn't zip through the film or anything. But it leads to for me, a very satisfying conclusion, and I enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. I had a good time.
Yeah.
Far out.
Same.
I like it when I can imagine. Can you imagine catching this at a drive-in? As it was probably the beef each year, right?
I mean, 1974 is early enough, I guess, that it didn't seem quite as old-fashioned as it would just a few short years later.
Yeah. I mean, The Exorcist had come out that Christmas.
Right.
Beforehand. So it would
seem pretty tame.
Tastes were changing across the board, but I still think it's early enough that, because I saw films similar to this in the theaters. I saw Asylum. I saw this House of Crazies, but I saw that in the theaters, and you know that plays even though it's an anthology, it plays similar to this. A little bit more ghoulish, and what EC.
Yeah.
It feels more like Tales from the Crypt kind of film. But anyway, enough about me in this. Let's before we get into discussing the film, I think we might have something else to do there. Jeff.
No, we're good.
What is that?
Oh, relax. This is going to be an easy night.
Because it's now time for Taglines with Chad.
Okay, there are taglines for this movie, and I will proceed to read them now at your pleasure. Tagline number 1. There is more than death waiting for you in dark places.
Ooh, you worked the title into it. Very
That's not
good.
bad. That's not bad.
Beware of dark places.
Okay, that's a little simple.
Come on down for a deadly week under the influence of ghosts and horrors.
Under the influence.
That's a French tagline, and that's how it translated.
All right.
Under the influence.
Under the influence.
I love it.
Trying to think of how
Someone
to
was under the
phrase that.
influence when they came up with that.
Yeah.
What are you in for?
Week
UIG.
in the presence of ghosts and horrors.
Under the influence works for me.
Surrounded by ghosts and I don't know.
I'm ghost drunk.
You got ghost drunk.
And that's been Taglines with Chad.
Chad's our hero, cool and rad. With him reading taglines, they can't be that bad.
Thanks, Crystal.
Yay, Crystal.
All right, we got to take a look at some of these posters here for this silly film. So let's do that. All right, there. You know, that's an interesting
I
poster.
like it.
Yeah.
It's simple and crude and cheap, and yet, that would get me in the theater.
And there's the bodies.
We got the bodies. We got the weapon.
Yes, we do.
Got the
Well, I don't know what
metaphor for a skull. I mean, it's death, you know. And,
there's more than death waiting for you.
I've always wondered though, why do they do that sometimes? Look at the title of the film. Why is it in quotation marks, like dark places, like it actually takes place in a solarium, you know? So, but it's metaphorically dark, so we're going to use the scare quotes or something.
Yeah, who are they quoting?
Yeah, who are you quoting?
Dark places, as in not the way you like air quote dark places.
Dark places.
If you know what I mean. Dark places. Wink.
Wink. Not
I'm
those
intrigued.
dark. All right, what is this? Les Manor de Phantasmes? No.
Fantastic.
No.
Pass me the Phantasm.
As you.
You sound like Brad Pitt trying to do Italian in Glorious
I can't
Bastards.
do French. Even if I know how to pronounce it, my nose won't do those things. I can't get that.
Manor
I like
des
the I like-
Phantasmes.
There's that quote at the bottom, or the
Ah.
tagline, whatever that is. But nice shadow, I think.
Yeah, I like it. I like the shot. I like the
Lots of
design
red.
of this. It's a little. I don't know. It doesn't.
There's a body that's bloody with an open shirt that's leaning its head across on a house or a barn or something.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
the house there.
It's a pretty tiny house.
All
But okay.
right. Yeah, well,
Got
it's
everything.
all perspective. It's all perspective.
It was a big pick.
What are they selling here? They're selling our leads.
Yeah, so this one knows that the real selling point of this film is the cast. And notice how they put Jane Birkin on top.
They
Even though
did.
She does not have the biggest role, but I guess for this folks, she was a big deal in Europe as a singer, really. So
Oh, really? Okay.
it's like when
Nice.
Madonna was in that little short part in a horror film. It was like Madonna starring in a certain sacrifice. It's like she's not starring in it. But okay,
Herbert Law is nowhere to be seen.
her
Nowhere.
to be seen.
Nowhere.
He's creeping by the window, peeking in with glowing eyes.
Yeah. He's like, if you wait long enough, he'll peek over Christopher Lee's head. And then this one is.
And this one, he's like, you know what? You know what the problem with that last poster was? Too many guys.
Too many guys.
Yeah.
Let's have a shadow to know that there's a guy in there. Oh man, that's hilarious.
That leg. Oh my God.
That is. I guess that's enough. I don't know.
Did somebody fall down a flight of stairs? I don't know.
She actually. Well, I'll wait till we get to her.
No.
Anyway.
Okay. All right. Here's Don Sharp is our director, and we've talked about him before. We did Psychomania back in the day. And you guys have done and you guys have done Rasputin.
We've done
right?
Rasputin.
Yeah, we did Rasputin, and we did not do
Curse of the Fly is an interesting little movie. It has very little to do with the fly. There's no actual fly in Curse of the Fly, but it's the family of scientists who did that whole thing with the transporter, and it's a really cool little film. Very.
I'm trying to remember.
Bizarre.
Is that the one with Brian Donlevy, or is that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's got a scene that has haunted me ever since, where they basically transport a couple of people in the transporter, and what ends up on the other side is this horrible blob of arms, and it's like yikes. So that was a cool one. It's odd. And Kiss of the Vampire is a pretty fun little vampire movie with one of the greatest endings, if they had just been able to do the one thing that we all know they can't do, because it was an army of bats taking out vampires. The original ending for Brides of Dracula, but they came to their senses and realized, oh crap, we can't do bats, so let's do something with a big burning windmill.
Oh crap!
And that's why that's a great movie. And Kiss of the Vampire is like such a good film up to that. You're building to a climax that you just can't do. That you might as well just no, guys, do something else. It's like, but if they thought that way, we never would have gotten the Gorgon either, because that's the same thing happens. We build up to the Gorgon, and there she is with a bunch of rubber snakes in her hair, and it's like,
the Gorgon still works.
I love that movie, but
he also did a couple Fu Manchu. He did The Face of Fu Manchu and The Brides of Fu Manchu,
which are the only two Fu Manchu movies of that decade worth watching.
Well, there you go. He also did Witchcraft, which has another name. What's the other name for that one? I might be thinking of another film. Oh my gosh! Now I
think
feel
you are. This one is Lon Chaney Jr.
It is the different one that I'm thinking of. Yeah. Also known as
you're thinking there was like Night of the Eagle or Burn Witch Burn. There was a few witch movies that came out.
Yeah. So I wonder what. So that might not be the one I was hoping he had done. Oh my.
He's a good director. There's a lot of variety here. None of these films actually have much to do with the other. So,
and Psychomania is also known as Death Wheelers. I like Psychomania better.
Oh, me too. How come nobody ever cosplays as these guys? They had pretty cool costumes.
Yeah, make it cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that movie is so different than the rest of them. Even this one, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All righty. Do we have anything on the authors, the writers of this?
No, but I think it's pretty well written.
Because
I'm just looking. I don't think this is so. Mr. Brennan, this is his only credit, and Joseph Van Winkle. He's
What
got
a
5 credits. So I don't know. You never know. I think it said it's an adaptation, uncredited by James Hanna Jr. and John Sharp, and then written by. So you never know how those things work out.
I wonder if Mr. Van Winkle, did Van Winkle have like a big bushy beard? Because that'd be
and James Hanna Jr. was had a one-off too. So I don't know. Makes me wonder if there were some cover-up pseudonyms here.
Maybe
the writing's pretty good. I thought I liked this.
Yeah, I did too.
So this is our lead, Robert Hardy, playing Edward Forster and also Andrew Mohr. Oops, let me get this. Or at least the younger version of Andrew Mohr. Sorry about that. Ring, ring, ring.
You're the first caller on Decades of Horror 1970.
And he did a pretty good job. He
Yeah,
played
I
both
thought he was
characters
great in this.
interesting and was I believed he was losing his marbles. So that was that was the point.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Well,
Yeah,
I actually believed he was being possessed at some point, and
Yeah.
and I think that's where they wanted you to think at that point in the movie but it happened. It made sense logically. It happened slowly, and it didn't happen overnight. So we're kind of it kind of made it to where we're on the journey with him, and we're kind of right there when these weird things keep happening. And I like that a lot about it, the way that was written, that it just didn't happen overnight where he was all of a sudden he's this evil guy.
Jeff, you were talking earlier. Is this supernatural? Is he just crazy? I mean, there's lots of reasons to believe that he's just crazy because, he's just got out of an insane asylum. So crazy's definitely on the menu, but he's remembering things that he has absolutely no reason to remember. He's not related to this guy. He's not part of the family. This is not a legend. Nobody knows where the kids are and everything. And so his flashbacks make no sense unless he is being possessed. Now, what he's being possessed by, I'm not entirely certain. It doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense that he's being possessed by the guy that he looks like.
Which didn't he watch him die, or was that other relative?
I think that was him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, see, it's weird because when you first start watching it, he's there in the room and he's telling the doctor something, and then the doctor looks at him and goes, "Well, you're not really on the medical staff here," and so. But they don't say, "Oh, he's a patient." Apparently, he's a patient that used to sit by this guy's bed all the time. But does the guy, the guy that's dying is obviously very old and not all there. So does he know who he's talking to when he says, "I'm leaving you my house and because you're the one that stayed by me," and blah blah blah? We don't even know that.
And is that what gets you out of an insane asylum? If somebody leaves you a house, you get to leave?
Well, I wonder if he was already. I wonder if he had already gotten out and he was just visiting.
He either got out the day before, or there's something in there about him getting out. He was released the day after or the day before. One of those two.
Yeah.
And it's happened to me twice in my life, so it's not that far.
He just walks up to the house and goes, "This is my house." I mean, it's crazy. It really is kind of crazy. Somebody talks to him, and I don't remember. Is it Herbert? Is it Herbert Lom? Somebody talks to him.
Well, he says it Herbert.
No, he's crazy. He was crazy, so that will is not good. So I don't know why they're just letting you walk around the house.
Yeah, because Herbert Lom lets him stay at his house because he's the neighbor and lets him stay there for a little bit. And
he wants him, and they want him. They think the old guy told him where the money is, so that's what they want. Right. That's why they're letting him hang around.
Right. And he starts looking for the money. Some people may recognize this guy from Harry Potter movies.
Harry Potter. He was the Minister of Magic or something.
Cornelius Fudge. What a great name.
He went over the entire house with something. I never saw what he had. Tap, tap, tap. And that was driving me nuts.
No, that's right. He did. Well, his hands. He was going like
he had something in his hands. He had a piece of metal or something. He was tapping the wall with.
Looking for hollow spots, I assume.
Yeah.
It seems to be a constant theme in these movies that, houses have hidden money in them.
Well, yeah, of course. They have, secret places and stuff like that. At least he doesn't find it right away.
No.
And we get a good. I mean, he looks for it.
I just saw Perry Mason where they had 2 suitcases full of greenbacks. Okay.
Greenbacks.
Filthy lucre.
Oh man! But he was also.
I guess if you get an old English house, you should probably smack around trying to find the hidden stuff. But there's at least a 50-50 chance you're just going to find a bunch of bodies.
He's a interesting guy. He was a very well-known character actor, I think, in UK, and there's a ton of quotes for him, and he doesn't pull any punches. On Daniel Craig, he says, "I don't think he's a good actor, but he's very good at jumping."
Wow.
Crab.
So he's reached
like-
that I don't give a rat's ass age.
That's
where I'm
right.
just gonna say what I think.
That's right.
Yeah.
At some point,
Caddy.
Wow.
He was also in Psychomania or Death Wheelers, and he was in a movie called Demons of the Mind.
Yeah.
Hmm.
He's good. He's good.
James was very good in this.
Yeah, I think he holds. I mean, he's got to do a lot, and he's working against, people that we, have seen other films in, and we may not recognize him, even though we have seen some. I have seen the films that he's in. But yeah, so he held his own. All right,
He's good with a pretty familiar plot point too. I just want to say, every movie I've watched where people try to drive someone crazy, it almost inevitably ends with the person they've driven crazy killing them because they're now crazy.
Yeah.
Does that change here? Does that change here?
No, nope. They never
Not
saw it
really.
coming.
Spoiler alert. Okay.
Oh, we'll spoil that when we have the picture for Joan.
There you go. And speaking of which,
Nice pick.
there
Oh,
you
gee,
go.
what's happening to her? It doesn't. Hey, there's Joan.
Mm.
Like, I have an idea. Let's drive him crazy. There's Joan on the bottom. This wasn't a good idea. Yeah. So there you go.
I should look at her. She loves it.
And he thinks,
Yeah, harder.
while he's doing that, he thinks she's Marsh.
Mm.
That's who he's
That's-
seeing.
yeah, right. And he sees who's he see her as his? Does
The,
he see? Does
The
he?
mistress or the not his
wife.
mistress, his wife.
Right.
Jean Marsh was his wife. That's who he saw. That she came
Okay.
into bed and tried to make up with him. And-
Yeah.
and he was like,
Awkward.
Right.
Yeah, she was great. She was.
I
Really
see.
good
I
in
see what
this.
you're saying.
I also know in
I
these
misheard
movies,
you. I thought you said Mars, which guy he.
Yeah.
Sorry.
have
No,
you ever
the actor's
tried to
name, I'm
actually
sorry.
strangle someone? Please say no. It takes a lot longer than the movies. In the movies, if you get like a good 3 or 4 seconds of solid throttling, they're like, and they're gone. It's like I could hold my breath longer than that.
Yeah, it takes a while.
You would think. I
Take
would
it from me.
imagine. I mean, I don't know. I've just watched a lot of movies.
It takes a while.
Really?
That's why when you
we
go,
don't need to know about what you do in
when
the
you go
closet.
pheasant hunting, if you go pheasant hunting or something like that, that's why you wring their neck instead of strangling them when you're.
Ring their neck.
Jeez, I didn't know I was going to get expert testimony when I asked.
Look, you guys, it's a little too much.
Hmm.
People are a little heavy for that.
So here's some more Joan
And-
Collins from this time when she was kind of a
Yeah.
scream queen before there was such a thing.
Empire of the Ants.
Empire of the Ants and Tales from the Crypt.
That is such an awesome Tales from the Crypt poster. And it's just a skull with an eyeball.
Nah, that's
Oh,
all-
I
that's all you
love
need.
that picture. I love that
Yeah.
picture.
And she had a
That's such a
good
great
role in that
photo.
too. That was the one with
Great
the strangling
shot.
Santa Claus. Another one where she ended up getting choked out. So
Yeah.
apparently a lot of people felt the way you do, Chad, about Joan Collins, because as soon as they had their
Mm.
opportunity, wring your neck.
I liked her in this though. I did.
Yeah.
She was good in it. It took me a while to figure out that she was Christopher Lee's sister.
Right.
It was a little creepy.
Yeah,
because
that
it was like so jelly. It was weird.
Right.
Until he
was
starts
awkward.
getting all kicked off of, getting it's really kind of what's the word I want?
Creepy.
He
Creepy.
was all happy until she
He
said
goes, "Oh,
something
what-"
about being with some guy, and then he's like, "You filthy slut!"
Betty slut, how dare you enjoy carnal knowledge with another man?
And then
You're my brother.
Yeah, she says something like that. Just think how you'd feel if you weren't my brother.
Ooh, yikes.
I know it's all kind of. It's all kind of. Joan may be our only connection to Batman.
Oh.
She one
She
of
was-
them.
She was a siren. The
She was
siren
the
in two
siren,
episodes.
yes.
Yeah.
Which of these four? Well, it doesn't make any.
I'll tell you
Tales from
what.
the Crypt.
She's very fetching in this movie.
Yeah.
She's fetching. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, it's totally believable that she could seduce this guy and not have to spend a whole
She
lot of time
is about 40.
in this
Well,
movie.
too, he spent years in a mental institution away from the presence of any kind of female influence. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying that he wouldn't have got with the first thing that came along, but
You know what they should have done? They should have showed like a scene in the asylum where somebody had one of those little Herbert Lom dolls from the movie Asylum.
Oh my God! Except for the timing was off, but yeah.
Yeah. It would have been perfect.
Awesome. Oh my God! She was also in a movie.
Sorry.
She was also in a movie called "I Don't Want to Be Born." It's listed as Sharon's baby, but that's where the baby may be possessed by the devil. I don't know if you've ever seen that one. If not, we may have to get that on the list.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
It's not. But we may have to watch it. We may have to watch it.
Sometimes we got to put some of those not so classics in there too.
Yeah.
She made a bunch of these psychological thrillers in England, and they said that she said, "I became known by the British press as Queen of the Horror Films," a title I didn't particularly relish. But I consider myself lucky to be working so much after such a long period away from the British screen.
That's a good attitude.
kept cashing those checks.
That's right.
She did.
Until she got on Dynasty, and then I imagine the check she was cashing then.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah. For 10 years.
And then she's like posing for Playboy, and she was like one of the #1 stars in the country for a while.
Yeah.
In her
Absolutely.
50s.
Isn't that crazy?
50s.
Yeah. And still owning it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we have Christopher Lee here. And what I thought was going to be like a walk-on role, he actually has a pretty meaty part in this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, even when we get to Herbert Lom, he's got a meatier part than I expected, but I was surprised, How many of these 70s movies have we watched to have these actors in them and they come on and say
just
a line?
you can see
disappear
for a day.
No. But
Scream and scream again, it's like how long?
He was pretty
What gets me
here.
about this is why I've never heard of it. Usually if it's like a little day roll or something like that, it can escape your attention pretty fast. But he had a pretty good part in this, and somehow I've never heard of it. This is one of those movies where your friend goes, "I've seen every Christopher Lee movie there is." You can pull this one up and go, "Ha!"
Yeah,
because I have never heard of this movie. So,
and apparently he said it wasn't an enjoyable filming experience because the building is really old and dank and moldy and not a lot of fun, but he seemed to enjoy the film, the director and the other actors and everything, as challenging conditions, but he had a good time doing it. And Lee was someone who was not afraid to tell you when he didn't like something. Just ask him
go on
about
record.
Dracula.
Go on record.
Oh yeah. I mean,
well, and Lee said it was the house, the location was perfect casting.
Yeah, and the house worked. Yeah, I mean it was a creepy looking house. Yeah.
But the scenes with he seemed to be enjoying the scenes with Joan Collins were just kind of creepy because, again, you're thinking ahead of yourself. It's like these people aren't really brother and sister. They're just a couple of con artists, probably married, and they're trying to scare this guy, and they're going to do some heebie-jeebies to him and all. And no, I guess they really were brother and sister. He really is a doctor, and
but he did seem awfully upset that she slept with these men that they.
He very upset.
Yeah.
Against the, now I'll tell you, if you're a guy and someone like Joan Collins shows up and she's clearly a classy dame, way above your league and everything, and offers to help you clean up the house.
Yeah.
You need to dig a little. There's something fishy going on.
Well,
but you're not going to question it all, right?
Yeah, the best you can hope for is she works for Project Veritas or something. She's an undercover podcaster who's trying to get some dirt on you. Things like this don't really happen. Not to you. Look at yourself. Look in the mirror.
Undercover podcaster.
Yeah.
You clean needles?
Yeah.
So you
So
picked
this
some
was-
interesting. Yeah, you picked
Yeah,
some
well, this
interesting
is around the
posters.
time. These were around the same time, and this is some big budget stuff. The 3 and 4 Musketeers, and then the real breakthrough role for Christopher Lee. I mean, all of us, we loved Christopher Lee from the get-go, but the world at large didn't know about him until he kind of made an attempt to go Hollywood. And The Man with the Golden Gun, which doesn't seem to be anyone's favorite James Bond movie, but I like it. I
Oh,
like
but
it quite.
you got to love a villain named Scaramanga too.
Yeah, he was great. I mean,
Something
he's
about
one of the best Bond villains. This may not be
Is he the one
best
with the
Bond
third
movies.
nipple?
Yes, that's his
Why
superpower.
do I remember that? He's got the third nipple.
That was so
Yes,
random.
Doc. Why do you remember that?
Yeah,
Why is that the thing I remember?
It's
used it
usually
to
Jeff
kill
that
people.
remembers stuff like that.
they were going to call it the
I
man
know,
with
I
the
know.
third
I'm
nipple,
just
but that didn't test
yeah.
well.
Golden gun. Give him a golden gun. That'll be better.
And then
That'll
of
take
course,
your attention away from the third nipple.
I'm thinking this is around the time he also hosted Saturday Night Live, and I thought did a kick-ass job too.
Mm.
But it didn't. I don't know. It didn't necessarily stick. He's so English,
But he
and
did
such a
Airport
u-
77. So
He did Airport. Yeah, he's got such a unique physical presence, and I can understand not wanting to be stuck in the horror ghetto forever.
That's why he made a great heavy metal singer.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's right. But it's got the good ending too, because he lived long enough that a whole generation of people who grew up with these films were now making films. People like Tim Burton, and who did The Hobbit and Lord of the
Peter
Rings.
Jackson.
Thank you, Peter Jackson. And they're like, "What? He's still alive? Holy crap! Yeah, come on, I gotta have him in my movie and everything." So, who had a better third act than Christopher Lee? Being in Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, pretty much everything Tim Burton had. His movies, the last few years of his life
Hugo.
making movies,
He was in
were
Hugo.
movies that made billions of dollars.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But in 1979, Chad Hunt, do you remember Reb Brown as Captain America?
Yes,
Good
he was.
God.
He was the
He
main
was-
villain in that one.
In Captain America 2.
Yeah.
God, those were terrible.
Not the first one, but the second one. Oh my.
Suddenly,
That-
Dracula didn't
yeah.
seem so bad.
Yeah, I was like, what have you been?
I don't think he will ever wanted anybody to know he was in that.
No, he got die on his resume.
I think I heard in an
no.
interview that they really talked it up to him, like this is going to be like Star Wars, and this is going to be like,
Like
yeah,
They
and
meant- this is going to be like the Star Wars holiday special. He didn't
Yeah.
let him finish.
Yeah. But he was awesome in 1941, which is a interesting
Yeah,
film.
I
interesting.
love that movie.
I love
Do
it
you
too.
love
but
it because it's hard
it
to
bombed.
love?
It bombed,
Yes.
but it had a lot
I
of
like
actors
it,
in it.
yeah.
I thought it was fun.
It's just
The
Crazy.
scene with who's the guy that rode the bomb in
Slim Pickens.
Slim Pickens and the Japanese guys on the sub. To this day, I laugh my ass off during that. It's so funny, and I just
It's been
think
a
it's
long time
hilarious.
since I've seen it. Oh,
Yeah, I haven't visited that one in a while.
And he swallows
plays-
his compass.
Captain Wolfgang von Kleinschmidt.
I remember how the
Mm.
critics had their knives out for that one. It's like it's time to take this Steven Spielberg down a couple notches.
Yeah.
And 1941 gave him the opportunity. But I thought it was an entertaining film.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It didn't. Yeah. It just should have been so much better, though. I remember walking out of the theater so disappointed. All right.
Mm.
Boom. Herbert Lom. Sporting his
Looking like a spy.
perfect silver coif there.
Look at him up there. He looks like Dr. Mabuza or something. He
Doesn't he?
looks like a super villain. He should be fighting Bond.
Why did he
Maybe-
never fight Bond? He should
Because
have.
he only had 2 nipples. That was his problem.
Well, then he was. Didn't he? Well, who did he fight? He fought Clouseau, right?
That's right. Yeah.
He didn't get Bond. He got Clouseau.
He was the best thing in those movies. He really was great.
What's that? Clouseau?
Oh yeah, he was
fucking
fantastic. And another guy who made a lot of films and all, but toward the end, when he became kind of an elder statesman. I mean, he's so phenomenal in like The Dead Zone. I mean, that's a great movie on so many levels, but Herbert Lom is wonderful in it. And he had a great touch for comedy. I mean, I seriously, he held his own against Peter Sellers. That's no easy task.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a small role here, but he's fun. And
he's the closest thing to a day player. I mean, he's got probably a weekend, a couple days.
Yeah, all he did was peek in windows most.
Yeah, and then everything was in his house. Although he did walk over to everybody every once in a while. Right? He'd walk up, and then they have like that one scene out in the driveway.
And it's entertaining that he's really the antagonist to Christopher Lee. They're both trying to get this money, and
I know neither one of them.
I think that's why he survives. Although he's not a good guy, he's not necessarily a bad guy either. He's not going
He was just an opportunist.
Opportunist. I mean,
he was an opportunist.
It's not doing anyone any good. So if he happens to find it, and he almost got away with it too, if it hadn't been for those crazy.
I know, and he looks so downtrodden when the cops drive away. And he's like walking across.
So this has to be said. His birth name was Herbert Charles Angelo Kuchasevich ze Schluter Picheru.
He changed that to Lam. That's one of the greatest decisions any actor has ever made in the history of actor decisions. Changing that to Lam. Yeah. Wow. That doesn't fit on any marquee.
Yeah, and there's
none of them do.
No, it doesn't. Oh my gosh. But other than Dead Zone, we have posters for Murders in the Rue Morgue, Asylum, and now the Screaming starts.
Which I just put in there because it's for Chad.
Yeah, the hand. But Asylum, him and his little robot there. Oh my God, I love that part.
They were great.
How come nobody ever sells those things? How come you don't go to a convention and there isn't like a whole bunch of those just sitting there?
A Herbert Lom robot sitting around.
It's Charles Band.
And then and the special edition has the guts hanging out.
Yep. Yeah.
When they get smashed. Obviously Dead Zone's the best of these four, but I have a special spot in my heart for Asylum.
Oh yeah.
Jane Birkin. And you said, what did you say about her?
I think she was a singer that had quite a few hits. None that I know of, but I think they were big hits in, Europe. That's a picture of her on the bottom in her prime. She's very attractive, super attractive, and
she didn't do too bad acting here either.
Yeah, you can certainly see why this guy would choose her over his crazy wife. I don't have stuff for her, and I should have, because she was also quite good in it. She played the desperate madness very well, but
so she did have an album in 1969, Jane Birkin and Sergei Gainsbourg, and include a highly controversial track, Je t'aime mon non plus, which I mispronounced, but it's entirely in French, but it had very explicit gasping sighs and moans that simulated oral sex.
Oh.
So and then it sneaked on the
Love to Love You Baby of its time.
Yeah. And it sneaked onto the American charts in 1970. Enjoyed modest success. I don't know anything about it, but now I got to go find it.
I think, if I'm thinking right, I believe she's also famous. She got into like fashion and stuff. And
she had a purse.
Her purse, the Birkin purse, apparently was a big thing.
The French design house Hermes named and designed a handbag for her in 1984. The now famous Birkin bag, which kind of sounds familiar. $6,000 a piece. I gotta search that.
Yeah, see if you can find a picture. Here's the thing: whenever they do that, this purse is worth $10,000. You're like, I gotta get a look at this purse because this thing must be amazing and filled with $1,000 bills. But no, they just look like anything that you could pick up at Kmart. There's nothing special about these. I don't get it. Don't get it.
So the images that come up go everywhere from $340 to here's one for $406,000.
Wow.
Is it made of gold?
And it does look kind of normal, but it's got I don't know what it's got on it that's special. Yeah.
The only special thing about these bags is that you get to walk around and tell everyone you meet that this bag costs $406,000. And then don't complain when they conk you on the head with a metal pipe and take it, because really you deserve it.
I think they really soaked the name too, because it just looks like a bag to me. It looks like one of those sort of pouchy bags, with the clothes at the top and has a couple of different pockets.
So like every bag ever invented.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got a name on it. She was
just lighting all the copy for their commercial. A pouchy bag
that opens at the top. Ooh.
Well,
there's a zipper even.
For another $50,000, you get a strap.
My mastery of the English language.
Well,
2020 retail prices start at 11,400.
Oh, jeez. All right, circling back to horror movies. She was she was in a horror movie in '73 called Seven Deaths in the Cat's Eyes, which is one of those.
Sounds giallo.
Yeah, giallo films. Other than that, the only films that I recognize are like Death on the Nile and Evil Under the Sun, which are both
Perot.
Agatha Christie movies, right?
Perot, they're definitely Agatha Christie.
So I don't necessarily recognize any of the others. Yeah, she's a kung fu master. That's awesome. I kind of want to see that. Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea. Oh, she's just a voice.
Oh,
I don't know. That she's on a plane in 1983 with the Hermes chief executive Jean-Louis Dumas was seated next to her, and she put her straw bag in the overhead bin, and all the stuff fell out of it. And she explained to him that it had been difficult to find a leather bag that held all her stuff, weekend bag that she liked. So he created a black, supple leather bag, translation, pouchy.
We can do this for you. We have the technology, but it will cost at least $300,000.
So he created that based on a 1982 design. She used the bag initially, but later changed her mind because she was carrying too many things in it. What's the use? She said. You only need one, and that busts your arm. They're bloody heavy. I'm going to have an operation for tendonitis in the shoulder.
Wow. The marketing department must have loved her.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, my goodness.
In 2015, she wrote a letter requesting her name be removed from the bag.
Really? Oh, my goodness.
She wanted to debaptize the Birkin. That's hilarious.
Someone needs to make a movie about this.
Yeah. Well, there might be.
And then the one star that we don't have any pictures for, but is Jean Marsh.
Yeah.
Who plays the wife, right? The wife in the history and the
flashback. She only had that one scene, but it was a great scene, and I thought she knocked it out of the park with that desperate vulnerability and that real touch of madness.
Well, she absolutely goes nuts in the bedroom or wherever it is. She's destroying, throwing stuff all over the place. It's like,
and she was in Frenzy, as well, which we covered here. And I wonder if we talked about Dark Places.
She's in Willow.
Yeah, I wonder if we mentioned Dark Places, or did we even realize Dark Places was a more of a matter? Listen to that Frenzy one to see if we mentioned this movie. Could we have mentioned the movie and it totally escaped us?
Maybe
it's possible.
Very easily.
That's kind of crazy to think of, isn't it?
Crazy to think that I would forget something. No, that's the default. That should always be the default expectation.
All right. Well, that's it for our review of Dark Places. Go check it out on Tubi. Let us know what you think. We'd love to hear what you think. We have what's the best way to reach out to us, Jeff?
Well, you can make comments on the Gruesome Magazine YouTube channel or the Gruesome Magazine
website.
website or the H&R and DOH podcast Facebook group.
Oh my gosh, we got to change that.
But mostly, or you can send them to feedback@gruesomemagazine.com.
There you go.
And I think the two easiest ways to collect them from are feedback@gruesomemagazine.com and
Or official something or other.
The comments on the Gruesome Magazine YouTube channel. I can always access those from most recent. So when there's new stuff on, I can see them. But in the Facebook group, it's kind of hard to find stuff as they get scrolled down.
It gets lost in time.
So we appreciate the comments. We really do.
Excuse me.
We got some good comments on there. People are posting stuff all the time.
Yep. And we have some comments here in just a hot second. I just want to remind everybody that we also have a Patreon at Gruesome Magazine. And we, alongside the 70s there, we are doing a review of all 20 episodes of Kolchak, the Night Stalker. Just about ready to wrap it up. But it'll be available for you and subscribers only. So you check that out.
Yeah, and a couple announcements too. Also, we did Equinox last time, and one of the things we talked about was David Allen's movie, The Primevals, finally being available. Well, it hit Shudder on December 1st.
Oh, wow.
Oh, nice. Yay.
So you all go out and check that out. If you have a subscription, it won't cost you nothing. And the other thing that hit Shudder is we're always being told to check out the British Christmas horror stories, which I think Stone Tape was one of those, right?
Yeah.
Originally. And they have a chunk of them from the 70s.
Oh, wow.
And so go check those out. And I think there was something else I was going to say, but I don't remember what it was. Other than the Stone Tape is available. You can get an all-region Blu-ray, I believe. Comes out in about a week or so.
Excellent.
So if you're some poor guy like me, whose like wife is into those Hallmark Christmas movies, where some lady from the city comes back and meets a guy who wears plaid and they blah, blah, blah. Okay. So maybe you could alternate. It's like you get to watch one of those horrors and then we get to watch some British ghost story Christmas.
Yeah. And they're a little bit like this in that if you've read British ghost stories, that's what these shows are like. They are kind of slow burned, very atmospheric, very psychological, very introverted. And
it's a slow going.
It's great.
People don't get overexcited. Oh, I say there's a face in me, figgy pudding, and it just sort of builds up to a mild scare.
I haven't seen that one yet, Bill, but I'm looking forward to it.
The face of the figgy pudding. I think that's the name of it. Yeah.
Does my
Does your spotted dick what? What was that?
All right. Let's move on to the feedback quickly.
We got a lot of feedback. Because we didn't do any for
oh man, we got feedback.
Equinox, so that we got like a month's worth of feedback here. So first one, episode 145, the little girl who lives down the lane.
Oh wow, that's
going back a few years from Travis McDonald. Chad, sir, could you take that one, please?
Sure. Travis says, excellent review here. I first became aware of this film many years ago after renting Night of the Zombies, a.k.a. Hell of the Living Dead.
Wow.
After the movie, a series of horror trailers played, which included Incubus and House on Sorority Road, with the little girl who lives down the lane being the last one. It was a very creepy trailer and did sell the film as a horror movie. However, it was several years after that before I actually saw it, as it came on cable, and seeing the title reminded me of that trailer. A tremendous movie with outstanding performances by Jodie Foster and Martin Sheen. Hard to believe that a Bruno Mattei film helped introduce me to this underrated gem. Keep up the great work.
So funny. That's
Never
hilarious.
know where those rabbit holes will take you.
Yeah,
No.
Martin Sheen, Jodie Foster. Forget the young guy's name. His last name was Jacoby. All right, next up, episode 205, Death Game, from Lanny Lord. Bill Mulligan.
Okay, so this is one I actually missed. You guys are having a really hard time describing this movie that is not for everyone. LOL. The main problem of Death Game is that it's a 45-minute idea stretched out to 90 minutes. Agree?
Agreed.
It does have some scenes and images that are unforgettable, and I think all the acting is fine. The ending is hilarious. LOL again.
Yes, it was.
The reason that you never saw it before is that it was never on television, a la Don't Look in the Basement. It's not a bad movie, but it is not feature-length idea to begin with. It's pretty devious in its intention. I would love you guys to unearth a 1971 sicko shocker called The Night God Screamed. Face,
Ooh.
fuchsia, wide eyes. I just, had to say what exactly. I have heard that title, but I've never seen the movie. And I just say Amazon's description is: a woman is persecuted by Jesus freaks after they've crucified her preacher husband.
Uh-huh.
Okay, that's intriguing.
Sounds like a fine
Wow.
time at the
Yeah. Perfect Christmas movie.
Perfect Christmas movie.
Okay.
cocoa and cookies and sit around and watch
Mhm.
crucifixion.
Hot cocoa.
Sponsor
Coke.
Dick.
We will. I'm putting that on the list because I got no idea, and it doesn't pop up when I put it in the
Mhm.
search engine, so I'll have to go digging.
It's probably one of those that goes under 50 million different
Probably.
names.
Yeah, right.
Probably.
Kept trying.
As not
All
to
right.
offend the sensitive.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure about this one because this word doesn't seem right to me. Episode 215, Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, from David Hubbard, 6963. What does effective as it was?
That might be a typo.
I don't know. It's a 73 movie. A lot has changed in film. You guys are talking way too much. Pound for pound, one of the most scariest films ever.
Yes.
So I believe we liked it. We said it was lacking in some areas, but it was 70s and it was a TV movie. So, hey, that's all okay.
Yeah, what are you going to do?
And David, I tell them, hey, we're talking way too much all the time, and it never works.
Never,
our
never
goal.
said.
It never.
Yeah. Sorry, David.
Yep.
That's our.
But thanks for
That's
listening.
We
That's
talk
my
about
shit.
shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I do
Yes.
appreciate it. Then episode 223, Craze, Mikey Z.
Me?
Mikey Z.
All right, Mikey Z has this to say about Craze. I am writing this before listening to the podcast. I have never seen this film, believe it or not. So
I
I
don't
started
believe
watching it. As soon as I saw Herman Cohen's name, I kept wishing, oh, please, please have Michael Goff in it. But alas, it was not meant to be. Instead, we get an Americanized version in Jack Palance. And there is no shame, no shame in that. I bet you're thinking about Mikey G in that role now. But anyway, besides
He's in his own
Palance,
world.
the film has a very good cast of British actors: Deanna Dores, Julie Eggy, I forget.
I think that's right.
Eggy. Edith Evans, Hugh Griffith, Trevor Howard, and Susan Kendall fill the bill. You make me read these names. Freddie Francis does a good job of directing the tale of this tale of love. God worshippers. I'm a tale of love God worshippers. Besides Palance, I really like the role by Edith Evans. Her performance is very natural, as it is if she,
It is as
One word at a time, Doc. That's
it is as if there was a film crew following her around and she goes through her everyday chores. A lot has been said about Deanna Dores and her extracurricular activities, but she was considered a British sexpot and was on the scene before we had our Marilyn. Then there's Hugh Griffith and Trevor Howard and their idiosyncrasies. But this is Palance that devours more scenery than even God ever could. And that is saying a lot. He is fun to watch, even when he is saying or doing nothing. His eyes and facial movements speak volumes. This letter continues. His Neil Mottram is a real hoot to watch. His switching from his normal state of being to full-blown batshit choku devotee is hysterical, bizarrely funny to see. Here is a prime example of how far a cult member will go to please its leader. But I think Palance's character would have committed these acts with or without Choku's influence. He is that perfect Hitchcock antagonist, calm and charming in social scenarios, but calculating, and you don't want to be in the same room where he is in Choku mode. Once Griffin
How do you want your pie? Choku mode or Alamo?
Once Griffin appears on the scene, the script and the film has a more comedic tone. Innuendos and double entendres abound. When the masseuse opened the cupboard, I burst out laughing, but that was short-lived. The marks on her neck were a little tough, but a little tough to look at. Sorry. Blah, blah, blah. Then the finale with Ronnie, the camera set up behind the outer door where you cannot hear what is going on, was a chilling moment. I'll get back to you guys after I hear your podcast.
Okay.
We read all that, and you hadn't even listened to the podcast?
I fumbled a lot there. Wow. Okay.
Episode 224, Moon of the Wolf. Chad from Kathy Chapman.
Kathy says, enjoyed this movie. I love Bradford Dillman. So do we. We love Bradford around here. Speaking of which, you do need to review The Swarm.
Chad, you do, right? We do.
Kathy, my hero, my hero. Watched it and can't say that it was the worst of the B movies. That honor goes to 1978, The Bees. Makes The Swarm look like cinematic gold.
Wow. Does it?
It's
I don't know.
It's The Swarm.
So also on Moon of the Wolf, episode 224, is Mikey Z. Bill.
The one and only Mikey Z says of Moon of the Wolf, I have not seen this in many, many moons. The last time was probably in the 1970s on rerun on TV. Dr. Hardy from General Hospital and Dr. Kimball from The Fugitive. I'm waiting on Doctors Kildare and Welby to appear. Any more TV doctors I left out? Well, Dr. Shrinker. Yeah. As Chad stated, this is reminiscent of The Beast Must Die, a nice whodunit type of film. I like the point of having each character that enters the film makes you think that they might be the killer. Red herrings and misleading characters keep the audience guessing. Always nice to see Jansen, Barbara Rush, Jeffrey Rush, Bradford Dillman, and underused Royal Dano, although Jansen's accent changes with the slightest bayou breeze.
Jeffrey Lewis. Jeffrey Lewis. That must be a typo. Jeffrey Rush.
Okay. Yeah, right. You're right. Like Jeff, I like the minimalist makeup on the Lupe Garouk. Oh, yeah. My biggest bugaboo about the script. Anyone with the slightest bit of knowledge of French superstition will know about Loup Garou. You don't have to be a linguistic expert to know that there was a mispronunciation afoot. A good movie that can only come from the 70s. This was released just a few months after The Night Stalker appeared on TV screens. Not much on special or makeup effects, but still very well acted. It doesn't really have any slow moments in it. Great podcast, guys. Keep rocking the 70s. Thank you, sir.
I just pronounced it the way Johnny Quest did.
Well, that's usually the way to go.
And probably Race Bannon. All right, episode 226. I'm Monster from Robert Baker. Oh, and this is good because this was Doc's pick.
I'm Monster. Robert Baker says, saw this for the first time just a few weeks ago, right before I saw that you guys were going to cover it. I Peter Cushing together in a movie makes it worth seeing. This one is okay, but not their best. Glad to see it though. I would be very interested to know how that Blu-ray looked in comparison to the version I saw on one of the lesser-known free streaming sites. Very washed out. Not at all like the usual Amicus prints. Couldn't tell if it was intentional or just a version they had uploaded.
Thank you, Robert.
The answer is yes.
That was a fun one. I enjoyed that. 227, The Stone Tape from John the Wiz. Chad.
John the Wiz says this has a bit of a following in the UK. Fun fact, it was supposed to be the fourth Quatermass, but the TV people decided otherwise and wanted a younger lead. The chap playing the lead boffin, Michael Bates, was supposed to be Quatermass, and rumor has it he didn't turn up for the second filming date, but only gossip. So I heard is such a versatile phrase in the media. And I also heard there's no incidental music deliberately, as Neil wanted the audience to be focused on the sound on this as that is where the horror lies. Apparently, it terrified the British public on Christmas Day when broadcast.
Yeah.
And I think we talked about that a little bit too, how the lack of the music in some areas just kind of made it that much creepier.
I think we did. Thank you, John the Wiz. And also on the Stone Tape, Gregory Crosby. Bill.
Gregory says, so pleased that the Grue Crew not only did the Stone Tape, but loved it. I concur. I think I was one of the many who suggested this. In fact, I think I did so when we recorded the Countess Dracula episode, given it's the same director. I first saw this, weirdly enough, on the big screen 2 or 3 years ago at an Anthology Film Archives as part of a series of Lovecraft and Lovecraft-adjacent horror films. It immediately became my favorite Nigel Neal script, which, given my love for 1967's Quatermass in the Pit, is saying a lot. Once allowances are made for the time in which it was made and the limitations of television FX, and what true horror fan doesn't make allowances, this is a smart, well-acted, perfectly paced, powerfully chilling teleplay.
Yes.
I would argue that the early 70s videotape aesthetic of this only enhances the story, which is wonderfully overflowing with all sorts of vintage tech and technobabble. I also argue that while all the performances are top-notch, it's Jane Asher who anchors this film and makes it utterly convincing and feels all the more tragic for that. Highly recommend this to any and all who need a little dose of some cosmic horror to offset all the mundane horror that surrounds us. And as much as it pains me to disagree with Bill, I sincerely, fervently hope that no one ever does a crappy, big-budget, CGI-soaked remake of Quatermass and the Pit. I'm still holding out hope because, I'm an optimist. But if they do, you will almost certainly be correct that that's exactly what it's going to be.
Bill, you know Gregory as well as I do. It did not pain him.
No, it did. He didn't lose a wink of sleep over it. Probably woke up smiling for weeks.
Slept like a baby that night.
Yeah.
But he's right. And from Robert Baker on the Stone Tape.
Me?
Where we at?
Me? I think it's me.
The Doctor.
Robert Baker says, watch this over the Halloween season for the first time. Feels very Quatermass. And the production values made me think of Doctor Who from the 70s. I always hear that music when I hear Doctor Who from the 70s.
Uh-huh.
So much so that I kept expecting John Pertwee or Tom Baker to show up and join the proceedings. That would have been awesome, I say. Back to Robert Baker. Right after I watched this, watched Ghost Watch for the first time as well. How far British TV had come by the 90s. I wish that one had been broadcast in the 80s so you guys could review it. Ghost Watch had to be some influence on found footage haunting films that would be coming in the future. Yes, it would.
Yeah.
Yes.
We
Very good
might.
observation.
We're toying with the idea of stepping out of the 80s periodically on the 80s. Okay. The Stone Tape. Another one from Andy L. This was a popular commentary.
Yeah, you read this one since it's the last one in this.
Is it? Okay. Andy L. says, hi, crew. I'm really glad that you all enjoyed this. I was a little worried about making it as a suggestion since it is pretty theatrical rather than cinematic. I had been looking a number of years ago online for British science fiction and horror shows that I never saw. This motivated me to find out of the unknown, out of this world, the changes, beasts, children of the stone, the Omega Factor, Sapphire and Steel, and the Stone Tape from some of those articles. And we're looking for some of them for quite a while. I eventually had to pick up several of those in what I believe was probably a bootleg transfer of a British DVD to a non-region disc from, ioffer.com, or something similar where such rarities were available. Since I didn't have a region-free player, but a few were available in NTSC. The quality of some of the surviving videos on many TV shows from the 60s and 70s are pretty bad, as indeed so much earlier TV was wiped out to reuse the tape for future recording. Some episodes of Out of the Unknown were only partially saved or barely watchable. Glad the stone tape is more available now. Indeed, a slow burn but very entertaining story that was well written. As Bill mentioned, there's a long tradition of British Christmas ghost stories being aired yearly. Most of these were based on the stories by M.R. James. Many are slow burn and not terribly graphic, but several that I've seen have been interesting. Certainly not an expert on them, but I'm sure a lot of the British listeners could give more information on them. Best wishes for the holidays, Andy L.
Yay.
Appreciate it, Andy.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, actually, I've watched Sapphire and Steel at this time, or at least a couple years ago, was available on Prime, and it's a very interesting thing with and stars David McCallum as I'm trying to remember exactly what the premise is, but that's okay. You guys check it out. Episode 228, The House of Seven Corpses, from Travis McDonald. Are we back to Chad?
Back to Chad. Yep.
Okay. Travis says, I first saw The House of Seven Corpses as a youngster back in the VHS days. It was a chore to watch it then and still is today.
Nah.
The movie had a great premise and the acting was solid, but the pace is so slow, and by the time something happens, it's just too late to salvage any hope for the film. The movie feels like a more regal version of Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, but at least that one had a very solid ending. The House of Seven Corpses is just a dud, but I certainly enjoyed the review here. Keep up the great work. We do aim to please, and we do.
That's right.
We do strive to, if the movie is a dud, to make the review at least entertaining for you guys.
Yeah. Appreciate it, Travis. And Robert Baker on The House of Seven Corpses. Bill.
This is such a bad movie.
Nah.
It seems like a lot of it, they were just making it up as they went along. The director is so funny. He really seems to think he is making an Academy Award for Best Picture, but it couldn't be more obvious. His movie would have been horrible had he, the crew, and actors lived to finish making it. But I did have a good laugh at the end as he is weeping, my film, right before a camera gets dropped on his head. I agree about the dead cat. No one could evidently see, too. In the end, just seems like one of those cases where people got enough money to make a movie, then didn't have a clue on what to do. That might be right.
Goes on more than you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, this one's from Thunderhead Jones. Doc?
Give Chad a raise.
Why?
I'll double his salary.
I don't understand why. I've done it. We've doubled his salary several times, Doc.
Yeah.
You just forgot.
Still complains, though.
Yeah. I don't know who this guy is, but thanks a lot. Usually I hate your guts. Right in, but this time,
He's on point.
He's on point. Thunderhead.
And Mikey Z. I'll take this one. First off, thanks, Bill, for saying Frankenstein Island at least a dozen times during the podcast.
No problem.
I think I saw House of Seven Corpses on VHS in the 80s, but I might be confusing it with others of this ilk. I love that word, ilk.
Ilk.
I am going to have to check this one out again. By the way, John Ireland was also in a few early Corman films. He was also in one of my favorite 80s cheese exploitation films, along with Stuart Whitman and Donald Pleasance, Treasure of the Amazon.
Oh, jeez.
Get Crystal on board for that one. It is 80s. Unfortunately, Ireland also had a very serious issue with alcoholism, but still a good actor. Please do a film I recommended made around the same time as Seven Corpses, also with Carradine. Demure, along with Jeff Mohr and John Russell. It goes by several names, hint to the quality. I know it as Legacy of Blood. A trapped in a house while people die, sort of very dark comedy. I think the Grue Crew might like it.
Legacy of Blood.
Okay, this is like the fifth time you've suggested it, Mikey. So literally, I had several lists, and I've put it up. and it's marked. But I appreciate you reminding us because you know us all too well. Watch the film, and I, in fact, had not seen this before. Aha! It is, in my opinion, a very covert comedy. References to Vincent Price, etc. Lines like "Death is easy, life is hard." I don't know about the rest of you, but it was good for me. It is a look on low-budget filmmaking or filmmaking in general. It's a look at low-budget filmmaking or filmmaking in general, mixed with a horror element. I found that aspect of the film interesting in that regard. It reminded me of the beginning of Frankenstein, 1970. Carradine and Ireland give good performances. Carradine, the caretaker who wants the filmmakers to get the story they're telling accurately. Ireland is great as the director-producer who will not have anything interfering with his film being completed. I agree with the Grue Crew. Carradine looks hale and hearty here, not like he did in other films around the same time period. It has an interesting assortment of characters throughout. The middle-aged, past her prime actress who knows she can do better in her choices. A sarcastic, verbally abusive director who is funding the film and exudes an air of dominance throughout. The self-loathing actor who recites prose more sophisticated than the film in which he is in. The ingenue who is an inexperienced actress in and out of her role in the film within a film. It takes about 65 minutes before the horror elements appear. Considering this is less than 1.5 hours in length, they could have introduced them earlier. Still, not a bad film, just doesn't feel like a feature film. Well, I guess you should talk to Robert Baker, who said this is such a bad film. Anyway, just doesn't feel like a feature film. As pointed out by the Grue Crew, it does have a TV movie feel about it. I do like the hand emanating from the grave moment, from the Mummy's Curse, the vampire episode of Kolchak, to the ending of Carrie. That trope is one I always enjoy. I did enjoy the cutting between the death of Carradine's character and the resurrection in the film. Also, when the prop man was cleaning the prop and there is a mysterious shadow only to be another grip on the film. A very good moment, shot and scored very well. If there were more of that, this film might be a lot better. Just one question. Can someone please explain the ending to me? Did I miss something? Yes, depending on which version you watched.
Yeah.
Great podcast, guys. Keep rocking the 70s. So thank you so much.
At least you got to watch the ending.
Yeah. Well, we don't know.
The one I watched didn't have an ending.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Maybe he watched that same one.
The important thing is it ended.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think maybe you're right. And lastly, from Andy Morton, Chad, you want to take that one?
Sure. Andy says, great fun as always, crew. And if the opening titles to Children of the Stones, as mentioned by Jerry Chandler in the feedback, doesn't scare the shit out of you, then you're a bigger man-child than I am. This was a children's show. Video unavailable.
He gave us a YouTube link.
And it is pretty creepy.
Yeah. I'll try to remember to put that on the Facebook page here. And thank you, Andy. Andy's another one of our listeners from UK. Appreciate the input. All right. I think that's it. Thanks, everybody. Andy, Robert, Mikey, Thunderhead, Travis, Lanny Lord, Gregory, John the Wiz, Kathy Chapman, and that, I believe, David Hubbard as well. Yes, we do talk a lot. So there.
We love our fans.
We appreciate it. Keep that feedback coming. And that's it for feedback.
I did look up Legacy of Blood. It's called Will to Die in IMDb for some reason, from 1971, and it's directed by Carl Monson, Monson. The original title, Blood Legacy, then Legacy of Blood, and Will to Die, and probably a half a dozen other names. So that could be interesting. Yeah. All right. Hey, what happened to the
I took it off because I changed it.
Okay. Didn't want me to say the wrong title. All right. What is our pick for 2 weeks?
Well, this is going to be pretty fuzzy because
fuzzy.
I don't know exactly, but I'm going to pick 2 or 3 of those Ghost Stories for Christmas on.
So we're doing Shudder. One of those.
On Shudder. We'll do 2 or 3 of them.
Oh, why? Are they short?
They're only 30 minutes.
Oh, sure.
It'd be like doing an anthology.
Make me-
Some are longer, but I'm going to watch them. I've watched like 3 of them. I kind of want to do the Ash Tree because that's one of M.R. James' more famous stories, but people haven't suggested that. They have suggested A Warning to the Curious and Whistle and I'll Come to You, which I've seen both of those. Whistle and I'll Come to You was actually in 1968 and wasn't part of that. It was part of a different series that inspired the Christmas stories that came in the 70s. So
well, that'll be interesting. That'll be,
and I'll try to pick them this weekend, guys. So but everybody, you can go check these out at Shudder. There's just off a quick look for me. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 9 of them on Shudder, which would be how many years there are in the 70s. So hey, what the heck?
pretty close.
So that's what we're doing. British Christmas Story.
All right.
All
Well,
right.
that'll be interesting. All right. So there you go. That's our show for tonight. Thank you for listening. And again, love to hear your feedback. Also want to thank Jeff, Chad, and Bill for joining me tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thanks for finding that.
Yeah.
May I have some more?
We'll find something. It won't always be good, though.
We're on the British roll here.
All right. And with that, let's say goodnight.
Night,
Good
everyone.
night, everybody.
Gruesome Magazine.